We have had several teachers ask us to help with a basic setup for a simulcast check-in with both students in the classroom and students at home. It's really tricky to watch YouTube tutorials and try to figure out how that works in our own DJUSD classrooms and with the actual technology that we have available to us. So I borrowed a generous friend's classroom and was able to set up a basic system to get us going. Some of you may already have a fancier setup, but this video is to show how we can utilize what most of our classrooms already have in order to get us off the ground. I would encourage the most basic setup to begin with, and one of the best things we have learned about ourselves is that we know we will evolve over time and as needs present themselves. Since the directive is to do some sort of daily check-in, perhaps a class meeting, or even a picture book or a read aloud, let's start with something very simple to get us going. So let's look at what you need to get started. The first thing, always the most stressful part for me, are the cords, but it should be pretty straightforward. We have this magical, something kind of magically appears out of the wall in our classroom, which connects us to the district server. They usually look now like this blue connection. They used to, I believe, kind of look like this old Ethernet, yellow Ethernet cord. And then you will also need an HDMI cable, which you most likely have one that also comes magically out of your classroom wall because it connects you to your projector. And we're going to talk about connecting to the projector because I did that today and it made it much more user-friendly for the students. So you'll have one in the classroom, but we're also going to talk about a second monitor and what we'll use a second monitor for. And that also requires an HDMI cord because you want to connect your laptop to your second monitor, and we'll talk about that. Okay, you of course need your power, your computer's power. So all of this is being done with your district laptop and then a second monitor, which is to be provided by the district if you don't already have one. I used at the beginning of the pandemic, I used an old TV that had an HDMI outlet in the back that I could plug into, and I used that for a while. So you can get kind of scrappy if you need to. And then hopefully your classroom has a working projector in it. If not, we'll kind of work around that for now. It won't be ideal, but you can put in a fix order maybe and get that working. I'm not entirely sure how this works with the smart boards or the Promethean boards, but I'm assuming that those of you who have those know how to connect those already to your laptops. And hopefully those are working okay. So these are what you need to get started, and then we'll go over the setup and which monitors you typically use for what part of your check-in. So to review, we start with our district laptop, and we're going to assume that it is plugged into power. And then we're going to connect it to our district server, which is typically the large blue connection in the classroom. And then we will connect it to a second monitor. And the second monitor is what many teachers prefer to display their students zooming in from home so that they can see those students. Because the laptop display is what you will want to use for the work that you want your students to see, or whatever it is that you want both your students working from home and your students working from the classroom to see. And that will be projected from your district laptop screen to your classroom projector. And then you can also display that screen to your students at home on Zoom, just like we've been doing so far. And then you also have the option of using a document camera if that is something that you use and you would like to set up as well. And we'll look at that also. Let's see what this looks like in an actual DJUSD classroom. So as you can see, my computer is set up with the second screen now, and the second screen will be used to project my Zoom meetings. The main screen will be used to project the work I'm doing with students. So as you can see, that goes to the projector in the classroom. And so if I start a Zoom meeting, I think mine will default to starting over here, which is great. So, but you can use this bar, of course, to drag your meeting to whichever screen that you want now that you are working off of two screens. And I'm going to make this full screen. And then once my students log in, I can see faces on the screen. As you can see, I have the correct displays that I want on each screen. And so that, for me, was kind of the trickiest part. You have to decide what is being displayed on each of your screens. And so I'm going to show you where to find that. I always just come down here at the bottom and I search for display or duplicate or extend to a connected display. And a lot of us have done this. It'll take you to your settings here. A lot of us have done this at the beginning of, if we're using two screens, we've kind of set which screen we want to display what. But I'm just going to go over the parts quickly. And really, it kind of means you have to play around a little bit. So typically, in this case, our laptop is screen number 1. And so in the classroom that you saw, I had my second screen on the left. That's why you see it here in this image. If I had my second screen on the right, I would just click and drag it over to the right. And you want to do this because when you're moving your mouse from one screen to the next, if my second screen was over here and I would have to drag my mouse the opposite direction. So you want to just make sure that where your screens physically are in the classroom are displayed right here. Then you're going to come down and you're going to do this drop-down menu for multiple displays because you have multiple displays. You have different screens up. And this is where it got tricky for me because when I hooked up or connected the projector, it gave me screen number 3. And so you don't want to duplicate the displays because you don't want the same display on each screen. You want to extend the displays. So you want to show only on 1, only on 2, only on 3, and you're just going to kind of play around with these until you get the displays that you want on your screen. So for example, like I said, you're going to want your Zoom screen to show up on your second screen. And you can switch these around and you'll just see them kind of seamlessly switch in your classroom. But this is where you will move off of duplicate these displays. Or if you've had like I have 2 screens set up at home and I had to switch them around once I set up in the classroom. And I really had to play around with it for a little bit because I've never done it before. So as I think we're all in that situation. Hopefully this video is enough to get you started and connected and to know what parts of your system, if you're missing anything, to put in a work order or collect some of those items. And your site tech support is available to help as well as coaches and other staff. Probably a lot of your teaching colleagues will be in there helping as well. The next video is on the webcam. So our webcams are already built in. You don't have to do anything extra special for that. We have our computer webcam, which is what I'm using right now, to project ourselves for our students. But I'm also going to show the setup for the document camera, but I'll do that in a separate video so that we can get started with the technology that we worked on today and go from there. At your very basic level, you could have a Zoom meeting with all of your students. So your students at home could be Zooming in on their computers, and your students at school could be on a Chromebook Zooming in as well. And you will want, there's some tricks, you'll want all the kids to be muted in the classroom so that you don't get feedback and things like that. And I know that's not ideal for the younger grades. Some teachers are feeling that that's an equitable way to have a check-in. But for the younger kids, it might be a little bit tricky with the technology. And so that's why we are also showing the check-in that you could do with a webcam like this, and you could sing a song or read a book or do something like that. So I will work on the next video, and we will see the different ways that you can project yourselves.